Wavect, the web-free software company that understands what you want.
Hi everyone, another week, another podcast, this time with Doron Wesly, CCO, Chief Commercial Officer of Funtico. In this session we talk about their challenges of bringing their GameFi tournament platform to life, what they focus on, what bottlenecks they have, and what they learned bringing from Web 2 to Web 3 and all these kind of things, right? We really dive deep into go-to-market. We even briefly talk about AI. So lots of really interesting insights from a seasoned entrepreneur, and I learned a lot myself. I'm pretty sure you will too as well. So if you got some time, check it out and yeah, leave some feedback below. What's the biggest challenge you personally or your team has faced so far? Your company exists for 2.5 years now. I guess there have been a couple of really interesting paths you had to take because something unexpected popped up.
That is true for any business, and it's definitely true for the Web3 world. We have to consider a couple of things. One, as you're building a company, you have to find the right investors that want to believe in your vision. We have found those people that have the patience and the business acumen and can actually support the business on different levels as it matures. And you have to know when you're starting a young company that even if you have a plan, a vision to go somewhere, you have to follow the natural progression of a company because there needs to be a market fit. You need to find the right people. The biggest challenge is not necessarily just finding the right investors, but it's also finding the right team members that can actually fulfill that vision over the period of time as the company goes from zero to having an alpha to having a beta. Each phase typically has different types of people that really work well with it. We were very lucky that we found the right investors, which means that we didn't need to bring in additional investors at all. It just stayed with the two original investors, which is amazing if you think about it. And then we had to find the right timing in order to enter the market. We didn't want to be a company that was going to tell a vision and get a groupie around them that believed in them, which is very typical for the Web3 world. That was true in 2016-17 when there was an initial hype. That was true in 2021, 2022 for the NFT marketplace. We felt very strongly, because we're seasoned operators from the Web 2 world, that we needed to build a product. We need to build a platform before we even brought users into it, before we brought other investors into it, and then actually try it out and see how people like it. So do trials and errors along the way, which we did early on this year in May and in June. Do our first NFT sale, do our first games, do our first rewards, actually give and pay out rewards, kind of run through the system before we then decided to focus on when do we bring this to the market and become bigger around that. And that's when we did Lucky Fanatic and so on and so forth, and now the TG coming up in January. So the challenges are finding the right investors, finding the right team members, and then finding the right timing to bring it to market, which we think we have. But as you know, this world is upside down, and anything can happen today that will change that trajectory and may alter that date. But for now, we believe that January is a good time to come into the market.
Why do you believe so?
There's a couple of aspects. Over the past month, we always knew that the US elections were having a very big impact on the market. We knew that a particular administration would be more friendly towards the markets. That has come to fruition, meaning that the moment that selection was made by the American people, it lifted the entire market up, because people believe that this administration is going to, for the first time, be more friendly, be more open towards digital currencies. And then, the replacement for the SEC that's coming up is promising as well for US regulatory environment. And while the world is not only the US, the reality is that the biggest market in the world is the US, $26 trillion and growing. China is a distant second. and then you have Germany and Japan, and so we needed this market to be at least not against it, right? I'm not saying it's open, but it's not against it. And there's a big inflows from the ETFs into the marketplace, which means that our favorite store of value, which is Bitcoin, has gone over $100,000, which we always knew was going to happen. And so we believe that the market has more confidence business wise to going. I'm not talking about the social environment, about the wars in Ukraine and other things happening around the world and in Israel. Those are very destabilizing factors, as you know. Um, but again, we believe that it's the right environment for us to be in.
Yeah, what you definitely never want as an entrepreneur is fighting the market, right? You want to flow with it. That's when you can actually grow without headwinds, right?
Correct.
That's what you definitely want.
Correct.
Um, but going back to your specific challenges, maybe, like when you say you did your first trials or major trials this year, what were like 2024 because it will release afterwards. Um, like what were some of these key insights that you got from your target users?
Well, I think that we had, first of all, it allowed us to actually see whether our systems are working, right? Can a person actually log on to the game? Can a person actually play the game? Can we have multiple people playing the game? Can we actually fulfill an NFT sale of 888 NFTs, which is part of what we do, right? The whole idea about Funtico is not only big rewards, which are we're talking about, rewards over $100,000 when you win something, but it's also the ability to take games, digitize assets, and then sell those assets, right? Like a loot box or lives or, upgrades or weapons or skins. So the whole concept is to be able to sell and deal with those gamified objects, right? From your game, from one game to another. And so the ability to actually bring real people into the mix from right around the world, from India, from Brazil, from the Philippines, from other places, let them actually register, let them actually play, be able to communicate with them about who won, who didn't won, have a running tournament board, making sure that there's no issues on different platforms because there are lags. When you're talking about, it's one thing when you have an Xbox game or a console game and you're playing it in your environment. There's no lag time because the machine is right there, and so you're running it near you. But when you're running it from servers, right, there's going to be lag, right, between India and between Japan and between Brazil, and so you have to distribute your computing power around the world in order to be able to service people from those areas and make sure that they don't have any latency, especially if they're doing a race against time, right? I mean, if you're doing a race against time, every second counts. So we had to go through these pain points to figure that out, learn the hard way what we didn't know, uh, undo what we didn't know, right, and then improve it. We also had to make sure that we were able to understand what is real human behavior and what isn't. I'm not saying that people inherently are bad, but when you offer money, right, easy money for people to win, you are more likely to encounter illicit behavior. Just gaming it. People just want to game things. And that's the nature of the beast. That's the beast we entered into. And so we have to be able to face it. So we had to manually initially review the results and actually see, is this a real human or is this not a real human? And there are many factors that determine that. In addition to that, there are many platforms, and this is more the marketing side of it. There are many platforms that offer you the moon, the stars, and everything underneath it, right? They'll say, oh, I'll bring you users and I'll bring you people, and you've got like launch pads and all of these under wonderful, partners. I'm not going to name names because it's not here. I'm not here to bash people, but you and I know, and the audience knows that the majority of them are just not operating with real people, right? It's very easy for them to set up a script and to create, non-human behavior. And so we had to tease out, which ones are true and which ones aren't. And we found some really good partners that have gaming guilds, real people. Um, and then we found the hard way that some of the launch pads that offer all these quests, which are great, by the way, sign up for social, sign up for this, tweet that, do all of that stuff, and then eventually play a game. they often didn't result into real people that actually were interested in. So those people may have been real, but they were really caring about that launchpad's currency in order to be able to get somewhere. And so once they did the quest, you never heard from them. They wouldn't even open up their emails, and so they wouldn't even like come and register. Or they wouldn't even like actually play the game or buy the NFT or actualize on their whitelist of the NFT list they were into. So we had to learn the hard way what worked and what didn't work. And sometimes I feel bad because we had some people in marketing who did their best but didn't get the results, and then they were replaced. And it's partly because people overpromise always in every industry and underdeliver always in every industry. And so we had to tease that out. Um, I say this with humility that I've been in marketing since 1995. So you would think that I would know one thing or another about marketing. And I've done both traditional marketing of big companies and smaller companies. And Ellie and I used to work together. Ellie's the CEO and founder of the company. We used to work together in 1999 on the very first toolbar. So we actually know how to work together. But even us had to be humbled and learn and relearn things. And we were overpromised by market makers certain things, and we were overpromised by influencers certain things. We had a wonderful influencer agency that did a great job in getting us to influencers, but that resulted into nothing. We spent a lot of money in the beginning on getting people to actually just sign up for the whitelist. And those influencers have big reaches, right? They have YouTube channels with millions of views, and they've got like followers up the wazoo on X. And it resulted into like 2 signups, 4 signups, 5 signups. Now, I'm not blaming it on them, right? I can never blame it on that, because at the end of the day, if you like our product or service, you'll come to us, right? That's the end of it. It doesn't matter how great your audience is, Kevin. I'm sure you have a wonderful audience, but unless I have something that's interesting, you can offer them gold and they won't do it, right? So it takes two to tango in this case, but it was a learning curve for us. It doesn't matter how often you've done these projects, right? I've done a successful project in 2017. I've done a successful project in 2021. When I say success, I raised money. All right, big deal. And we built the company. But it doesn't matter how often you do it, you still have to relearn it and understand that the market keeps on morphing. There are new players, there are new tactics to get, there are new mousetraps, as they call them in the industry. And so we had to relearn it. And that takes guts, it takes humility, it takes trial and error, it takes an ability to test, make a mistake, and relearn and redo your messaging or redo your creative. Um, it's part for the core. It's fine. This is why we do it. What we do. Otherwise, we would have not been in this business to build something new. If it was easy,
Everyone would do it.
yeah.
Absolutely. You said a couple of very interesting things now. One of it being basically you tilted towards relevance, right? Which means you can have a big, huge following, all these kind of things, but if it doesn't reach the right audience at the right time, it's basically wasted, right?
Exactly.
And I feel like that's a huge issue in Web, also like in every industry as well, but especially in Web3, where a lot of people are just in for airdrop farming and all these kind of things, like give me money, right? Like if I use your service, I want to earn.
Yes.
That's kind of reverse, right?
Yes.
And I think a lot of projects get false market feedback or manipulated market feedback by just having huge TVL, all these kind of things.
Yes.
And yeah, that's basically a great example learning. I think a lot of Web3 projects should discover earlier.
And we learned it also the hard way. When Hamster Combat, listen, we were doing regular, web games, right? And app games that we built. And then we saw, obviously, in March, Hamster Combat starting with their partnership with Tom, which, when you have a partnership with Telegram, by definition, you have a false view of the world because You're getting preferential treatment in a very targeted audience that's about Web3, right? So you don't really know how you're doing. You're just simply riding the wave of Telegram in that case. And what we saw is obviously a lot of people grinding for points with the belief that eventually when a TG would happen of hamster combat, the efforts they put into the hamster combat game would result into like richness. Well, you and I know, and hopefully other people also know, that it's not like you're really going to get rich and not be able to not have to work anymore if you do a clicker game. It's just not going to happen, you know. And so if that's the case, and that's what happened, obviously with that particular game, you had an opposite response once people actually saw what they were getting, right? Which was a big backlash to that project. So that company did a great thing. They built a wonderful clicker. We followed suit. We built our clicker. Our clicker, Lucky Fanatic, is doing very well, has been played by over 500,000 people. People are active in it. But we're trying to not follow that same mistake by over promising to people that they're going to get rich beyond wildness and never have to work again. They're definitely going to get rewarded for their efforts. And we obviously are offering them big prizes, but we're offering them cash prizes while they're playing now. So instead of telling them, grind, 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 and eventually you'll do something with those points because there's going to be a TG, we're telling them you can win now raffles and you can win prizes, $10,000 here, $1,000 there, $3,000 there, which is a lot of money, by the way, and allowing them to play and have fun right now with the game instead of like trying to promising something in the future that may or may not occur because I don't know what the market will do. I don't know what the market will do. My belief is that people will believe in our company. My belief is that we will be successful in getting more and more companies to come in our platform and that we will be a sustainable business. But a lot of the projects in our vicinity, they care about the initial pop, they care about the initial, transaction. They don't necessarily look at beyond that, what's going to happen 3 or 4 or 5 months after that. And I think that's a shame. But again, let me tell you, we're not saints. We're learning from other people's mistakes, right? Not mistakes. We're looking at other people's decisions, and we're judging those decisions and saying, is this something that we want to do or not, right? So when you ask me, like, what is going to determine where we're going to go, market conditions is one of them. But the other thing is that, unfortunately or fortunately, trends also determine certain things, right? Nobody knew about tap to earn games 7-8 months ago, and now everybody's doing it. There are many of them that are really well done, right? There may be a situation when we'll see a trend coming up in January that you and I cannot even foresee, or maybe you actually have seen and I've not seen yet, that may require us to rethink the whole tap to earn games and try something different, right? Because people shift their attention along the way, which is very natural, right? We're constantly looking for new things. That's a human behavior. We're very curious. We want to try new things. So I think that another challenge amongst the other challenges I've told you about is the ability to be able to recognize when something is shifting, right? And the ability to then act upon that. It's one thing to be able to recognize it. Oh, Bitcoin is going up. Well, that's nice that you can recognize it, but then what are you going to do about it, right? The same thing when, a new game concept comes along the way, what are you going to do about it? Are you able to then make the right moves in order to, work with that new reality? But again, I don't see that as anything negative, and I don't see it as anything bad. I just see it as simply being able to flow with the market as it goes along. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if we make that type of game or if we have like our own alternative coin or if we are an AVAX on some other platforms. It doesn't really matter. What matters is, are people going to want to play the game? I'm Doron, Chief Commercial Officer of Funtico. Funtico is a Web3 company. It's been around for 2.5 years. That specializes in production of its own games and creating a platform as a service for other game studios to bring their studios from Web 2 to Web 3. We're the fully compliant platform that enables players to win big rewards and really have fun across a wide genre of games. Number one, and now they're going to come back. Number two, and now they're going to tell their friends. Number three. If you're able to hit on all those 3 points, come, come again, tell somebody else, then you've got that magic moment. That's true for a movie, that's true for a game, that's true for a TV show, that's true for a podcast. That's what you want, right? Hey, do you know any good podcasts about Web3? Yes. Have you heard about Kevin? He's amazing, right? He knows a lot about the space and he speaks in such a wonderful way and he interviews interesting people, right? That's what you want, right? I want people that say, hey, have you heard about a new fun game? Or, hey, what are you doing right now? Oh, I'm playing this and this game. Great. Why? Blah, blah, blah. Can I try it out? Can you invite me? And I want to share it with other people. That's really what we all want at the end of the day.
Absolutely, that's basically product market fit, right? Especially when you grow like with that hidden hand at basically like you don't oftentimes know why you're growing because of word of mouth, right? Like stuff is just happening around you. And like since you mentioned that you have an extensive experience with marketing in both Web 2 and now Web 3 as well, um, usually people nowadays say, well, software products, that's not a constraint anymore with AI and all these things, right? Making these things more accessible. What is your current constraint in your business, since you seem to have distribution somewhat figured out? Like I wonder if that's still your constraint or if you see issues somewhere else in your business, like major things.
It's a fascinating question. I think it's a very smart question you're asking. Thank you for asking that. I don't know if I have an exact answer for you, but I think that I can, address it somewhat. I think artificial intelligence or generative AI is changing our workflow on a daily basis, meaning that, I'll give you an example. I'm doing translations now for localization of our site, and um, getting a JSON file from a backend developer that is really like the code and the way that they code the website. For those of you who don't know, it's not like you have a Word document, right? It's like line item by line item that goes into the coding of a website. I could easily, instead of me, getting, that file format in a certain way, he can give it to me in JSON. I can tell generative AI, can you translate this into a CSV or an Excel and make it work for me? That's where generative AI is amazing. Within seconds, I get what I need, right? Something that would break my mind or would force me to tell the other person, no, you need to give me in that format. Doesn't have to happen again. Same thing when it comes to translations. It generative AI, I'm not talking about just ChatGPT, but there are other, versions, models of it, large language models, LLMs, that specialize in translations. What they do is they do the initial translation, which takes seconds, literally, right? And then you still have to have a human translator to review it to make sure it makes sense in the context. Sometimes I'll give you a stupid thing. You could have on a website, on the top of the website, you have a menu and you have like a couple of words. When you pull that file out, the way it pulls out is word, line, word, line. Okay. Now, generative AI, where there is a failure there, it doesn't know that that's what it means. And so it doesn't translate those words because it thinks it's just one long sequence of characters. That's an example of where you need to have a human to say, no, 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 those are separate words. I need to translate them as well, right? So the nice thing about, AI is that it it provides a lot of ability to summarize things and to uh, do initial creative thinking around concepts and then trying to then figure out what you really want. And I think that that's really wonderful. I don't know if it is, if, as people say, it has changed everything, that by definition we don't have to have 50 people working on the projects and they're, because AI can take over so many jobs. At the end of the day, I can't have generative AI talking to investors. I just can't. So we need to have an investor relations person. I can't have generative AI work the magic of CRM. It just doesn't do it yet, not yet. And so we still have humans doing that. Um, it can't come up with like the right pitch. It cannot do interviews like this. I mean, I could probably program a generative AI that looks like me, but at the end of the day, I don't know if it would give exactly the same results. Maybe better. I doubt it, but maybe, right? And so it doesn't replace the entire capacity of a company, but it certainly has made it easier, to summarize things and to share information more quickly and to, do transformations more quickly. And we apply some of it to our business as well, right? One of the things that we're using it for is to determine better what is a human behavior versus not, because as you can imagine, it's one thing to look at a file of 200 people. It's hard, but it's doable. It's a whole other thing when you've got to look at like 450,000 people and try to figure out like what is human behavior, what isn't, or on a bigger scale, 300 million people like Hamster Combat when you've got so many players. And so that's where that type of application can really help us as a company be better, be smarter, be faster by applying it in certain ways on uh, human detection or other aspects that we're looking for, and to sift through data more quickly.
I guess you didn't notice, just to plug that in. I'm an AI too. No, bad joke.
Really great for
Uh,
an AI. It's one AI talking to another.
yeah, exactly. That's the future. Um, I mean, absolutely, AI, of course, is great, especially when it comes to the intersection of like, as you mentioned, transforming data from A to B, translating things, and all kind of stuff. Um, but from a constraint perspective, right? Like, I more thought about it. AI is making things easier, as you mentioned yourself, and the tendency says that especially distribution gets more, let's say, competitive with all that AI content out there, right? And more things seeking our attention, while um, product development, these things get optimized, as you said, right? So I'm just wondering, like, as a marketing person, um, I'm just curious, is marketing your constraint? Because for most companies it is right now. Um, and if not, what is it? Like, what's the most burning problem in your business?
I would say that uh, a finite, funds is always a constraint because you cannot spend money on everything you want. I'd like to be in every conference. I'd like to sponsor everything in order to make our brand known, but that's just not physically possible. Um, Marketing is a constraint because uh, even like warming up a domain to have a good CRM in place takes a good month, right? You can't speed it up, unfortunately, because you have on the other side the ISPs who have AI that combats spam. And so you're basically working through a process of establishing trust with those ISPs in order to be able to get the email delivered to the inbox versus to the spam box, right? So there are constraints that make the process um, difficult. Then you have also creatively, how to communicate things and be different, differentiate yourself so that it pops, so that it makes sense to people. So yeah, there are constraints, but they're not impossible to overcome. I think it's what makes it interesting. Like if everything was easy now, you would tell me, hey, Doron, set up, bring me users, and it was going to be a walk in a park. Anybody could do it, and the fact that it's not that easy, and that you need to, apply your intelligence to constantly figure out like what is the right process in order to do that, makes it interesting. I do think that. Uh, again, some of the constraints is simply, product market fit. Other constraints are, do you have the knowledge about how to overcome some of the basic steps that people make mistakes with, which is how do you set up proper registration? How do you, make sure that you're getting clean data in versus dirty data? How do you do all of that stuff? That's not a constraint. That's simply experience. And sometimes what you find yourself is that you're making mistakes because certain people like the experience. And sometimes those people like the experience because they're very young. Nothing wrong with young people. Everybody likes to be young, but there is something to be said about people with gray hair who at least have seen one thing or two and can say, when you do that, just make sure you think about A, B, and C and D in order to not make the same mistakes I made 20 years ago when I set it up. you know but marketing always will remain a constraint. Finance is always a constraint. There's a finite number of dollars you can spend, and so you have to play with that, as long if you want your company to survive good times and bad times. Um, and then I think that because not a lot of people are fully well versed in Web3, I mean, for you, this is a very natural environment. You've grown up with it, you can speak it, you understand it, you invest in it, you play with it. So it's much easier for you to understand what Web3 is and what uh, uh, having your data distributed over many places, and what authentication means, and what the basic foundation of our industry is. But for a lot of people, that's not the case. And so you may find a marketer that's really good in marketing lipstick or marketing a drink, a soda drink, uh, and they may be the best in, like, getting Coke to be on top of Pepsi, or Pepsi on top of Coke, depending on the market you're in. And they can tell you everything. They can tell you that 1 degree in refrigeration makes a difference between a person buying your product over the other product in particular countries, right? So they're really good at doing those things. And then you tell them, come market Web3, and they're like, I have no idea what I'm doing, because the audience is responding differently, right? So marketing is a constraint, funding is a constraint, um, but not impossible to overcome.
I really like that marketing piece now, because it's basically X market fit, right? Like marketing market fit, service provider market fit, whatever, right? When you say, hey, someone who is really good, like the best at something, could really suck at something in that industry, or in industry Y or Z or whatever, right? Because the ICP is different, the ideal customer profile, like who you actually target, or because people are on different distribution channels, right? Web3 are a great example, like Twitter, like X, all these kind of other platforms, Telegram. Like these are platforms where Web2 users are as well, but less so, right? Uh, there you have TikTok, Instagram, and these kind of things, Snapchat. So that's a really interesting point. Before that,
I would
yeah,
say, I would like to add to it that I don't necessarily feel that people, are terrible at something or suck at something. I think that everybody, including myself, by the way, needs time to learn. Needs time to learn and adapt. So it's not that they're good at one thing and they suck at other things. I would add to it that they just need time to learn, and they need a guidance. They need somebody to guide them through it. By the way, your podcast is one of those guidance, right? When people are seeking information about this industry, they're looking for people like you who uncover the onion, right? Talk to other people. Okay, what did you do? How did you do it? Why is it happening? What are the constraints? Uncovering it, and then they're listening to it. They're like, oh wow, I should think about that. And I think that you're one of those people that actually enables the untangling of this onion for them, so that they can actually go from taking their expertise and what they do now really well, and then applying that to our world, which is great. So thank you for your public service.
thank you for coming on to you. Um, I mean, there's this trend in hiring, and I think that's maybe a direction you just mentioned, where people say, okay, well, he's great in that. How can we make him or her, of course, great in our industry as well, right? Which is oftentimes done, or has been done, for Web2 developers, saying, okay, Web3 developers are so expensive. like especially in 2021, let's hire a really great Web 2 developer and teach them, right? Is that the mindset that you are referring to here, or is that just a general statement?
Um,
I know it's really detailed,
no,
right? I just want to
I
understand
actually,
your.
as I was talking to you about the last comments, I actually did think about, we talked about funding constraints, right? We talked about marketing constraints. Finding people, first of all, finding people is difficult. Yes, we're 8 point some billion people are on this earth, and yes, we're all wonderful human beings. A lot of us, not all of us. Um, it's hard to find. After COVID, a lot of things have changed. People are not really keen on coming into offices, especially young people. So finding people to want to come into an office and work together as a team, that's hard. And we actually have an office in Poland, right, in Warsaw, where we have, teams of people sitting together. We have an office in Cyprus where people are sitting together. So yes, while we have some people distributed, like myself, I'm in New York and I'm the only one in New York, the majority of us are in offices. And so it's not that we're against distribution of people, but we believe still that there's something beneficial about humans sitting together, sweating together, talking together, having coffee together, in order to kind of create something beautiful together. We believe in that. Um, it's also hard to find both men and women in the space. There are many women who are gamers, but there are not many women who are developing games, at least not ones that we're finding easily. So our companies heavily skew towards men, and I think that lacks something. I think that it requires to have different people from different walks of life that makes it better because they come with a different thought process. So that's hard as well. Um, if I were to ask you, on a funny note, if I were to ask you, do you think a male or a woman is occupying our HR position? What would your answer be?
I think the tendency is towards women.
And funny enough, that is the only woman that we have in our company. I mean, we have, and then in the creative department. So the funny enough is there's a prophecy into that, right? Because this is the typical role that people play, and that's a shame because I think that we need more other people as well in executive leadership as well as in other portions of the company. Um, so finding people that want to work in an office is difficult. Finding people that have certain programming language skills for games is difficult. WebGL versus um, some of the others, that's difficult. Even like for business intelligence, which is like analytics of data, having a person that actually feels comfortable in Power BI in Web3 space, not that easy to find. Finding creative people that can come up with interesting creative concepts for Web3, not that easy to find. So yeah, that is more difficult. It's not necessarily about just the fact that we have to be cautious about how much we pay people, right? Because we can't offer them, unfortunately, as a startup, we can never offer salaries that are competitive. It's just not possible. And so you have to find people who are the right people, who have the right skills, who want to work in an office, and on top of that, who believe in this vision, right? In order to be able to accept a remuneration, slightly lower remuneration for a job that they could do elsewhere and get more money for, right? So that takes a certain persona that wants to do that. Some would call it crazy people. I would call it people who actually believe, So it's in the eyes of the beholder who speaks about those people, and that's why I admire the people that we have. I admire the people that we have who are willing to come into an environment that is exceptionally rewarding and exceptionally difficult to maneuver. So I always look at people and I say, thank you for the work you're doing. I don't take it for granted because they might as well choose a different um, less a path of less resistance.
I just love that because I think it was Jeff Bezos who also said uh, when he thinks about hiring someone, he always asks, or used to ask himself, is that a person I would admire? Right, like exactly like what you were just referring to. Like I admire or like I really like my team for what they're doing. Right, like I love. Uh, I would. I'm not sure if it's passion, right? But they're onto something, right? They're participating in that culture. They're sacrificing something because taking a choice is always a sacrifice. So maybe uh, going back to your product because that's actually the unique thing about you here, right? Like this podcast session. Where do you see, like as you said, product market fit is really difficult, right? It's there are a lot of unforeseen challenges and things that pop around. But where do you personally see your product or your ecosystem, let's put it that way, in the next 6 months? Because Web3 is really fast paced.
I would hope that you and I will stay in touch, and I hope that we will do a couple of more of these sessions together because I like being here,
Thank you.
and I appreciate the time you're giving us. I hope that we continue to build. Um,
Quick intermission. If I could ask you for one single favor, it would be that you hit subscribe onto this channel because it helps our channel more than you can imagine. And the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests get. So thank you very much for watching and let's continue with the episode.
a platform that's easy to use for people who are not Web3 native. I don't want you to be Web3 native to play the games. I want you to play the games. I think that most people don't care whether they're on an iPhone, iOS platform, or Android platform from Sony or from some other manufacturer. I think that what they want is to play. That's really what they want. Same thing with camera people, right? At the end of the day, yes, you can buy a Nikon or Canon, but what you want is to take a picture. You want to grab a picture that's like the best picture ever. So I would hope that we would provide a platform that's easy for people to use, where they can feel comfortable and safe to transact with cash, fiat money, or with digital currency. I would hope that people would come to us and feel like they can actually have a chance to win, because we do believe that our unique selling proposition is win big, right? Win big rewards. And so I would hope that we could make a difference in people's lives. And if somebody races Formula Funtico in under 2 minutes and 31 seconds, they can win, $50,000 or $100,000. I think that would be great for people because that's a life-changing event. I think that even winning a weekly, basis, a mini tournament of $1,000 or a maxi tournament of $3,000 can have a good impact on you. It's like for some people, it's a monthly salary, that just a 13th or 14th salary for them. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's just a big deal. Life isn't easy anywhere, whether you're in Austria or whether you're in the US. Life is expensive, and so why not? Um, and I would hope that you would see, in the next 6 months, at least 10 or so, other games from other production studios who have games that are currently ad supported, who are on our platform and using it as a way to reach, other Web3 gamers, right? The total market around the world is estimated to be, and don't take me on a million or two, but about 600 million gamers. 600 million gamers. That's the current estimate, right, of how many people are playing games. And out of that, we believe that there's an additional 50 million of them that are, Web3 gamers. Again, don't take me on a million or two. It may be different here and there, but I think that, for any company to be able to get another, 500,000 or 1 million players to play their game, that could be a substantial difference. And in our case, it's not about supported models, but it's about making money from people paying to play. So it's like going into an arcade. There are many great arcades, by the way, in New Jersey, if you ever want to come, uh, where you have like classic like games from the 80s. I love classic games from the 80s. It obviously ages me, and my son does too, by the way. And so, pay $5 to go and play your games, and then be able to find a room to then compete against other people like you. And hopefully, you're great at Pong, and I'm great at Pong, but I'm a little bit better than you, and I can win the whole money from that pot,
Let's
from
see.
that room. I mean, those are fun things to do. So, and that's a great income for that production studio, because again, it takes people to produce games. It's not AI that produces the games, right? And so you want to find ways for those people to make money in order for them to come up with additional games. So I'm hoping that in 6 months, and hopefully you and I will speak sooner, that you'll see that we've done a successful TGE. Um, when I say successful TGs, that we have a lot of participants who've participated in the TG and are actively buying and selling, tokens. I hope that you will see that there are, 10 plus more games on our platform that actually are not just by us, but by other people. I hope that you'll see our other games also come to life. I hope that you'll see that we've got millions of people playing on the platform versus 500,000. Right now we have, 500,000 people playing on the platform, which is, by the way, still very respectable for a company that's new, right? But I hope that we have more. And I hope that people will know our name, that other people, when they come to your show, they'll say, when Funtico came to market with such and such game and with Formula Funtico, or they came in with the Necromancer NFT, we really like to emulate that into our business and what they did. I hope that the same way I talked about Hamster Combat and other games, that people will talk about us. And that would be great.
That's a great vision to have.
Yeah, that's what I wish for us. That's my 2025 wish. Today on December 30th, as you're recording this, that's my wish for 2025.
Love it. Well, are there maybe 3 key learnings that you would leave for the audience? Like if they have their own GameFi startup or something like that,
Yeah.
what would you tell them?
I would say that be humble. That's humility takes you a long way. Listen to your users. If a person is not playing a game, there must be a reason, or if they're not coming back, there must be a reason. So try to figure out what that reason is. And I would say, it's okay to look at other people's success, and to learn from that in order to build your success, further. It doesn't mean that you're copycatting people, but it means that you're learning from their successes and failures and are building on top of that with your creative mind. And if you can be humble, and if you can be open-minded to learn from your users, and if you're willing to learn from your competitors, I think that's a good recipe for a successful company to work in. And I absolutely am very bullish on Web3. I'm very bullish on Web3 games. Obviously, I'm coming with a bias, but I'm coming with a bias with some knowledge into it.
Cool stuff. Well, that being said, thank you very much for your time. It was really a
Thank
cool
you.
session.
I hope
And
that all of us will have a very healthy year, very prosperous year for you and your family,
to
for the
you,
audience's family. I hope that you will that we will have a year of peace and less fighting amongst all people. And I hope that more and more people will see the benefit of a decentralized world, where we can all contribute and we can all authenticate. Um, so again, may 2025 bring goodness to all of us around.
that's the mindset. So again, really thanks for all the kind
Well,
words, for being here, and yeah, would definitely love to stay in touch.
thank you very much, Kevin. Very much appreciate your platform and your podcast. Have a beautiful, beautiful day.
To you. Hey, thanks, Doron. I hope you liked it. I certainly did. And it was a really, really nice episode with Doron. We had a casual discussion that I personally really enjoyed. And yeah, just let me know what you think, what you learned yourself. Drop some comments below. And yeah, let us know who I should talk to next.
Wavect, the web-free software company that understands what you want.